Good morning. I'm Councillor Diane Donaldson and I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee A of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, can you all please mute your microphones in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure? Can you also turn off your cameras with the exception of committee members, unless you're the person speaking? This is in order to reduce bandwidth. Could everyone attending today's meeting please put their mobile phones on silent, ensure they are situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or any unnecessary noise emanating from radios, TVs, etc. Thank you for that. I'll be speaking slowly and clearly so everyone can follow. It's vitally important, for what I hope are obvious reasons, that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under regulations for these types of meetings. I also confirm this is a public meeting and therefore is being live streamed to the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. And please note this is a public meeting. It will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast via the Council's meeting YouTube site via the link in the agenda, and that members of the press public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at the meeting. If a disclosable interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Apologies was submitted on behalf of Councillor Davis, and I, Councillor Diane Donaldson, is the nominated substitute member. Can I welcome you all to this hearing of the summer review in respect of the Rocket Club, 258 Broad Street, Birmingham B1 2HF. I'll begin with some introductions. As stated previously, I'm Councillor Diane Donaldson and I'm chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are the members of the subcommittee, Councillors Martin Straker-Wells and Bob Beecham. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: Licensing Officer David Kennedy.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Committee Manager Katie Townsend.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. And Committee Lawyer Joanne Swampillai.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Could I ask all parties present to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, West Midlands Police.
Morning, Chair, West Midlands Police. It does say Huram Taj on our sign-in for some reason, but it is PC Ben Reader and Chris Jones that are here this morning.
Okay, thank you, PC Reader. Thanks for clarifying that. And next, the licence holder representative.
Good morning, Councillor. It's Heath Thomas from Harrison Clark Rickaby Solicitors. With me is Lawrence Reddy from the Premises Licence Holding Company and the Designated Premises Supervisor.
Good morning, all. Thank you. Could I ask if any persons making representations wishes to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing?
No, Chair.
Thank you. I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online, but wish to assure you all that such amendments will not impact on the parties' right to a fair hearing. We'll be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of the icons on your toolbar is a speech bubble. Click on the speech bubble to go into chat. If you do not have access in the chat function for any reason, please use the raise a hand function to indicate that you wish to speak. The button is usually fourth from the right on the toolbar. You can, of course, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Can you all confirm that you have access to the chat facility by typing your own name now? Officers will also give their job title. The meeting will not proceed until you have done so. Is that everyone, Katie?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Please keep this chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting in order that everyone can follow the messages being posted in the chat. If any participant has dialed in on an audio telephone rather than Microsoft Teams, please speak now to confirm that you can hear and be heard. I don't believe we have anyone dialing in this morning. With the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your cameras off unless you are the person speaking. If there are any problems with bandwidth, which cause difficulties with the sound, I may, in my discretion, ask everyone to turn their cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone able to hear and be heard. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? If so, please indicate that you wish to raise a point by typing speak into the chat function or using the raise a hand function now.
Did you get that Heath Thomas raised hand?
Oh, sorry, I was looking in the chat. Yes, yes, Mr. Thomas, please proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Beecham. Chair, this will be the third hearing that we've had in this matter. My application is for it to be heard in camera. The reasons remain unchanged from previously. If you agree to that request for it to be heard in camera, then there's a further request to be made, but once we're in private session. Can I add that this is an application supported by West Midlands Police, and I think they'd be making that application themselves if I hadn't put my hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. That's granted. I'll now briefly outline the procedure which will be following at today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer, David Kennedy, will present the report. Then the applicant, West Midlands Police, will be asked to present their case. We're asking this be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Then the licence holder will be invited to make their case. Again, approximately 20 minutes will be allowed for this part of the hearing. Can ask all parties to speak as slowly and as clearly as they possibly can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and the meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. If at any time somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, please signify this using the chat facility set out in the right-hand side of the screen you're viewing the meeting on. The meeting manager will alert me if you do not notice messages in the chat. I will determine verbally or in writing on the chat facility the order in which the questions are dealt with. Additionally, you may ask to seek to notify a question or point verbally in the usual way at the appropriate point. So at any point in the meeting, if you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function and the meeting manager will ensure that we come to you at the appropriate moment. If at any point you cannot hear or having problems with your internet connection, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager. The chair will then ask the person speaking to repeat what they have just said. It is therefore important that you use the chat function as soon as you're able to hear the person speaking. It may well be that there's a problem is caused by people still having their microphones or cameras on, which creates interference. So I will remind everyone to please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras when you're not the person speaking. Mr. Thomas, you have your hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, is that your
That's right.
historical hand? Okay. Could I point out that occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice at my discretion and may ask all parties to wait in the meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to this meeting and continue. Please note that if any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council's website fails, I will ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any time the meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream, and once the private part of the meeting is over, I will ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. Can I stress, no decision will be taken until all evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision. They'll go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any point, will be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. Notifications of the determination of the application will be sent out within the time limits. Okay, if we move over into the private part of the session.
Chair, I think everybody should have received an invitation
the licensing officer's presentation, and then we'll go into the private session.
Oh, I see. Sorry about that.
That's your fault. Okay. Do we have? Oh, David's here. So,
Yes, I'm
so we'd
here.
like to ask the licensing officer, David Kennedy, to present the report, please, slowly as clearly as you can, please.
Thank you, Chair. On the 28th of September 2021, Chief Superintendent Graham, on behalf of West Midlands Police, applied for a review under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003, as amended, of the premises licence granted to Val Events Limited in respect of the Rocket Club, 258 Broad Street, Birmingham, B1 2HF. The application was accompanied by the required certificate, which are attached to Appendix A. Within 48 hours of receipt of the application made under Section 53A, the licensing authority was required to consider whether it was appropriate to take interim steps pending the determination of the review. Licensing Subcommittee C met on the 29th of September to consider whether to take any interim steps, and having heard from both West Midlands Police and the licence holder's legal representative, resolved that the designated premises supervisor be removed and that the premises licence be suspended pending the review hearing. A copy of that decision is attached to Appendix 2. The premises licence holder was notified of the interim steps taken by the licensing authority and subsequently made representations back against the interim steps imposed on the 11th of October. A copy of those representations are attached to Appendix 3. As a result of this representation, Licensing Subcommittee met on the 12th of October, and again, having heard from representatives of the licence holder and West Midlands Police, resolved that the suspension be lifted, the designated premises super be reinstated, and as proposed by the licence holder company, Sinead Coleman shall act as a designated premises supervisor until the reinstated DBS is able to resume their full responsibilities. A copy of that decision is attached to Appendix 4. The review application was advertised in accordance with the regulations. No representations have been received. A copy of the current premises licence is attached to Appendix 5, and site location plans are at Appendix 6. When carrying out its licensing functions, the licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's statement of licensing policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Act. The licensing authority's functions under the Act are to promote the 4 licensing objectives. The options available to the committee today are to modify the conditions of licence, exclude a licensed activity from the scope of the licence, remove the designated premises supervisor, suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, revoke the licence, or take no action. In addition, the subcommittee will need to decide what action, if any, should be taken regarding the interim steps imposed on the 29th of September 2021 and subsequently modified on the 12th of October. Thank you, Chair. It may also be worthwhile if West Midlands Police could indicate whether they are seeking for their evidence to be heard in private. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. West Midlands Police, Ben Reader, PC Reader, could you confirm that you wish your evidence to be heard in private?
Yes, please, Chair. As agreed with Heath, that's the sort of agreed position that we want to be in private, please.
Okay then. So can we move over into private session, please, and pause the live stream? Good morning and welcome back to the Licensing Subcommittee A. Thank you for your patience during the adjournment. I'd like to advise you of the decision that myself and my committee have come to, and that is to adjourn the hearing. Due to the logistical constraints, it will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thank you. You'll be receiving the link via email. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, members of the committee.